Good morning, Dan and Amy. We are in Chocoholics Paradise. Morky's Chocolate, part of our AM560 Signature Bank Business Tour this morning.
Yeah, and they're located at 1890 North Rand Road in Palatine.
That's correct.
You want to stop by, say hi, get yourself a cup of coffee, a fresh-made donut.
Yeah.
They're wonderful.
And as we know, chocolate before 9 a.m. both improves cognition as well as your waistline. I'm going to come out of here with a V-cut. With all the chocolate I'm eating.
I mean, your waist is getting thinner by the hour.
I need a few more of the puppets, which is their name for turtles or pixies. I need a few more of those, and I'm going to look like Jack LaLanne. So yesterday, our friend Dean Angelo, he's the president of the Chicago Fraternal Order of Police, he was summoned to the White House to sit down with President Trump and talk Chicago violence. President Trump weighing in on Chicago violence again.
When I ask what's going on in Chicago, right? What is going on? There's no excuse for it.
Yeah, and Dean Angelo is sitting a few seats away from him. And President Trump said that police are prevented from doing their jobs because of the current political climate.
Sadly, our police are often prevented from doing their jobs.
And so for more on what that discussion was like with the president and what may be forthcoming from the White House to assist Chicago police, we're pleased to be joined by the aforesaid Dean Angelo. Dean, thanks for being with us again. Appreciate it.
Good morning.
Morning. And so give us your takeaway from the meeting with the president.
Well, he started with his prepared statement that was good to hear about his support and his respect for what the police officers do across the country, how he's greeted by law enforcement and in such a positive light no matter where he goes, as well as with the military. I think he mentioned something about it must be everyone in the uniforms or something about the uniforms. But, he is very supportive of law enforcement. He's very supportive of having police officers do their job. And one of the statements I mentioned yesterday was our officers here are concerned about losing their job for doing their job, and that's a big problem.
So he opened up a listening session, and what did you tell him is one of the solutions or a possible solution to the 700-plus murders just last year?
Well, I said this before, and I mentioned it yesterday when we were all together, was the fact that although we had those murders, we also had 4,300 plus attempted murders, because every one of those shootings is an attempted murder. People don't look at it that way. They just don't connect the dot, and It is something that a couple of inches away from a shoulder shot can be a heart shot or a head shot, and then we're at 5,000 murders. Does it take 5,000 murders to wake people up? I'm so concerned about that, and it doesn't seem to be resonating out there. It doesn't seem to be catching on, and people need to stop pointing the finger at the police officers and start going after these guys that are out there with their weapons.
What did President Trump say, if anything, in terms of what he's inclined to do from a federal level to help local law enforcement like Chicago police?
Well, our national president, Chuck Canterbury, had an agenda. One of those points on the agenda was the concern about sanctuary cities and reduced federal assistance. And everyone at the table, being in law enforcement, were concerned, and it came out about, does that mean federal dollars or federal assistance, like ATF or DEA or more federal prosecutors is going to be on the chopping block? Because the last thing we need now is less assistance or less money, personnel, federal involvement when you're concerning law enforcement. And that's something that was brought out at the table, and that's something that is going to be considered when we look at how they go about, addressing these cutbacks or these restrictions on federal money to cities like Chicago. We don't want to see that money that's earmarked for law enforcement to be diminished.
Well, that's going to happen. I mean, Jeff Sessions said this week that that's going to happen. The millions of dollars right now that the city of Chicago and the county of Cook receive in Department of Justice grants that are obviously law enforcement related. Those are going to go away. Even existing grants are going to be clawed back if Chicago and Cook County continue with their indulgence of sanctuary city designation. And Tiny Dancer, Ram, has said that that will continue. So you are going to see federal funds withdrawn from Chicago, it appears.
Well, I think the discussion that President Canterbury started in the room gave a new realization to the impact of the reduced finances from the federal government related to law enforcement, and I believe it might be. I'm hoping that it might be reconsidered for the monies that are earmarked for, addressing crime, addressing violence, addressing federal prosecution of gun charges, and we're hopeful, and I felt that it resonated in the room, and we're hopeful that it might be reconsidered with the dollars that are earmarked specifically for law enforcement.
So, I mean, President Trump has been tweeting, since January that he'd send in the feds if the carnage in the city did not stop, and he keeps, having these open discussions. When's he actually going to start implementing something?
Well, that's something that wasn't, mapped out for us. We didn't come away with a plan. We didn't come away with specifics. It was something that was not shared, and I don't need to see the playbook. I just want to see, the players arrive, and I want to see the reduction because, as you know, all the Chicago police officers live in Chicago. So, this is our city, this is our town, and we want to make sure that it's as safe, for all the families as we want it to be for our families.
You mentioned federal prosecution of gun crime. Is that something that you, Superintendent Johnson, want to see as these criminals who commit crimes with guns prosecuted by the feds rather than state prosecutors? And if so, does that mean there's a loss of faith in the Cook County State's Attorney's Office?
Well, there's a revolving door at Cook County. I don't know what's going on over there, and if they want to just, reduce their overhead. Is it about the line item? Is it about putting, minimal offenders back on the street so that they come back? I mean, you look at some of the pages of these arrestees. They're 14, 15 pages long. At what point do they sit for some serious time? And that's the difference between the state level and the federal level. That truth in sentencing, those guidelines are very structured, and 15 years is 15 years. So if you start sending people to prison, at the federal level for long stretches of time for a gun charge, I think that'll resonate. Whereas, your uncle, your brother, your cousin, that's involved in gunplay and gang warfare, and he disappears for 15 years in the federal system, that's going to send a message.
Did you have any alone time or one-on-one time with President Trump? And if not, what was your impression of him if you just sat there in the room with him?
It was an awesome event. It was amazing to be there. I was born at Gladys in Springfield, so guy from the West Side to eventually wind up in that room. It's the person that you see on TV is a person that was sitting 2 chairs away from me. I had the Attorney General 2 chairs away from me to the right, President 2 chairs away from me from the left, and the Vice President across the table. It was an amazing event to be there. He is who he is, and he talks the way he talks, whether the cameras are on or when the press was, ushered out of the room. So it was, going into the Oval Office was a nice event too, because conversations continued, and it was very lighthearted. Although the topics were serious when we were together in the Roosevelt Room, it was quite relaxing. I wasn't, it was different. It was something that you never expect to be involved in, but when you're there, it was. I was glad I was able to take it in. It was something that I won't forget.
Now, did you also get to see Melania's room?
I I did not. I did not get the tour that you longed for, Dan. So
Yeah.
maybe next time.
I know. Well, that's true. I'm trying to live vicariously through you, Dean. That's why I asked. Let me ask you another serious question. So the
Sure.
stats to date in Chicago, to your point, murders and shooting victims, 131 homicides year to date, 709 people shot. So we're nearing, the 1,000 number in terms of people killed and shot already, and we're just nearing the end of March. So what's happening on the street versus last year, where we're ahead of last year's, frankly, gruesome carnage rate? Is it the same situation? Has anything changed after all of the pontificating and all of the reports, both from Tiny Dancer's Star Chamber Committee as well as the Department of Justice from the outgoing administration? What's the reality on the ground for rank-and-file Chicago police officers today as we speak?
Well, God bless them, because they're out there scooping more guns than New York and LA combined again. They are incredible at what they do. I'm never short of being impressed by these officers out there pushing those cars and making those street stops and getting those guns. But when I said in August of 15 came true, and it wasn't I was looking forward to it, but when they signed off on that investigatory stop report, I said then, street stops are going to drop, murders are going to go up, we'll be at 700 before you know it. And that was in August of 15. When I said that in the room yesterday, the Attorney General asked me, "You really said that?" And I said, "Yes, sir, I did." And he said, "And it happened?" And I said, "Yes, it did. Tragically, it did happen." And I don't see a reduction coming. I wouldn't be surprised if we break 800, and we get closer to 900. If they don't start supporting these police officers to go back to work, to take those corners back, and to be aggressive in their tactics again, we're going to see more of the same. And I don't know. You mentioned, the 700 shootings. Maybe people need to start reporting those are 700 attempted murders.
Yeah, right.
So they can hear it over and over again. So if you add those 700 attempts to the murder charges, it's off the charts. And when did they start to wake up? And when did they start to redesign deployment and practice and procedure for these officers to get back to work? I talked to somebody from Australia, 60 Minutes, in my office a couple of weeks ago, and the crew that was setting up, one of the guys asked me with that mate, "So, mate, how bad is it?" And I go, "Well, it's not even not that bad." And he goes, "Wait a minute, are you kidding? Are you that desensitized? You had 4,300 people shot and all these murders?" And I go, "Well, yes, we are kind of desensitized." But they also did a pre-planned security, call to me, and I said, "Well, what are you so concerned about?" They said, "Whenever we go to places that are high risk, like Afghanistan and Syria, we want to make sure our crews are going to be safe." And I said, "Time out. Is it Afghanistan, Syria, and Chicago?" And the girl on the other line says, "Well, yeah." And I'm thinking, Mike, this is the way the rest of the world is looking at us.
Yeah.
And
right.
It's a shame.
All right. He is Dean Angelo, president of the Chicago Fraternal Order of Police. And, Dean, if we don't talk to you, good luck with your reelect on April 12th, right?
Yes. Well, thank you very much.
At least you don't live in Lincolnshire.
I'm not going there.
Yeah.
No, don't go there.
Yeah,
I did. It's
No.
Dean, thanks for joining us. And by the way, just in terms of what Dean was talking about, the predictions he made a similar prediction when I sat down with him for our Against the Current series, which you can get at upstream-ideas.com, of 45 minutes of unfiltered Dean Angelo on these matters. And he made a prediction about what was going to happen last spring. And unfortunately, as he said, he was unfortunately right in 2015. He was unfortunately right again in 2016. Dean, thanks again for joining us. Appreciate your time.
All right, you're welcome. Thank you very much. Bye.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.